Hey everyone, I'm Pion and welcome to Silicon Zeros. What is Silicon Zeros, you ask? I like to call it an electronic engineering puzzle game about living the American dream. It's by the same person who developed an old but awesome flash game called Manufactoria, and this is what it looks like. So I covered this game before with a blind first impression when it released a month ago, but after playing it for a little more I decided that it's worth to give it a proper look. So here we are. This game is, as I said, by the same person who made Manufactoria. If you don't know that game, I'll link it in the description below. It's a very awesome flash game that came out multiple years ago, which I played a lot when it came out back then. And well, this one is an electronic engineering game, and it's really good, I have to say. It's really, really good. So what is it about? Well, electronic engineering. So we build circuits. That's the basics of it. In this level, we have to put an adder module on the board, which outputs a 7. So for that, obviously, we need an adder module. So you can choose modules from down here. They have different categories. And this is an adder module. It has two inputs and one output. And the output is the sum of the two inputs, obviously. So we could, for example, connect it like that, and that would output a 6. Not what we want, but that's how it works. So I think this piece is actually pre-placed. I cannot delete that. No, this one is pre-placed, and we cannot actually place other number modules like this one. So this is a challenge in this level to get to the 7 without with only a 3. Well, with 3 and the memory over here. So the memory, we can read from that with the reader module. So the reader module takes an input, which defines from which slot we read, which will in this case be slot 3, which is not helpful. So we're not going to do that. And instead, we're gonna try to read from slot 6 by, well, creating a 6 as I showed earlier with the adder, and then we can read from slot 6, and now we have a 5. Well, that's helpful. Let's get to the 8 by adding the 3 to a 5. So we can use another adder, take the input from the memory, and now either take, no, actually we have to take this 3, it's the only 3 we have, never mind. And now we have an 8 as well, and we can put that into another reader to get a 2, and well, you guessed it, we can combine the 5 and 2 to get a 7, and that beats the level. So let's take a look again. So we have some time to actually understand what's going on here. So yeah, we place modules, we connect them with wires. As simple as that for the beginning of the game. It gets way more complicated than that, but one step at a time. So this one is fairly straightforward, as you can see. Let's go to the next level, which is a counter. So the game starts with those simple circuits, but then it adds another factor. It adds time. So the other one was just like a static circuit. You have some inputs, you get an output. In later levels, well, actually fairly early on already, the game introduces modules that take time to process the value. This is a writer. A writer will write a certain value in a certain memory slot whenever the timer ticks over. So this is this timer thing down here. If you start the test tab down here, or go to the test tab, you can start the simulation, and if we step forward, you can see how the timer is turning around and clicking in, and every time this timer goes around, the writer will write a value. And the goal of this level is to, oops, wrong button, sorry. The goal of this level is to set slot memory slot 0 to 0, memory slot 1 to 1, and so on. So what we need is a counter that counts up. Well, how can we get a counter? There's another module called Latch, which is also time sensitive. The Latch basically stores a value, and whenever the timer ticks over, it will take the input value, which is this one on the left, the to-store value, and write it or copy it over to the output value over here. So we can store values in the Latch, and they will be there for, well, a tick or one tick, and then the next value or whatever value might be the same one is in this input field will be copied over. So this is a way where with this piece we can actually implement a counter, and we do so by combining it with an adder. So what we can do is we can add the output of the latch with 1, so we increase the value by 1. And this will start at 1, and then we take this as the new input for the latch. So I'm gonna go through this slowly, so it's obviously what's happening here. So we're gonna just step through it. It starts with the 0 in the output of the latch. This will go into the adder and will be increased by 1, and that will be the new input for the latch. So when this timer ticks over, this will be copied over there. There we go, now we're 1 here, and this will create a 2 in the input. So every time the timer goes over, this counts up. That's a counter. Awesome, cool. So we can use that for our puzzle here, obviously, by just combining, connecting the output of the counter with the writer, because now every time the counter goes up, or the clock ticks over, the writer will actually write the values in the memory slot that we need, because in the first tick it writes 0 to slot 0, in the next tick it will write 1 to slot 1. So if we do that, we get a 1 in slot 1, and so on. And now we can just press the continue button and play it all out. And now levels get way more complicated, and the game doesn't stop here. So it gets more crazy than that. Let's get out of here. What was the next level? Oh yeah, right. The next level is called rec file. Next level I want to show you, obviously, not the next level in the game. And now we get some instructions in the memory here. So this is not just regular values now. Now this is an instruction. So basically a CPU instruction, because in this game you're playing as an employee at a circuit manufacturer startup in America. In the pre-computer era, not pre-computer, but pre-personal computer, I should say. And basically your goal is to build, like the vision of your boss is to create small computers, personal computers that everyone can put in their home. And therefore, first we need a CPU. So CPUs, interpret and execute instructions. So we need, modules that can execute instructions. And in this level, it's fairly simple. We only have one type of instruction, which is the set register instruction. We also have a register module, which is this one, which we can configure to store 8 values, which we're supposed to. So this has an input, and it has 8 inputs and 8 values, basically, or stores or whatever, or outputs as well. You can use these as outputs, but in this level we don't need them to be outputs. In this level we just have to store values in the register. So if we, that's the goal. So the set register instruction tells us to set the first value in the register slot of the second value. So every instruction consists of 4 parts: an operation code, a source, a target, and destination. Target for the set register operation is always undefined. And the set register says that you should put the value in source into the register slot in destination, so 29 to 3. The game is very, very good with tooltips. I have to admit that. The tooltips in this game are tremendously helpful. This is one of the simpler examples. I'm going to show you more useful tooltips than that later. But this is already very useful. I use these a lot, especially for the more complex instructions like add, for example, because it tells you exactly which number to put where and how to interpret the different values of the instruction. So in this case, we just have to store some values in the register. So how do we do that? Well, first we need a counter that reads those instructions. Therefore, I have there's this palette down here where you can store things that you need regularly. And let's start with this thing, which I used a lot during the game. This is a counter, which we built in the last level, right? This is the counter with the latch and adder and the number 1. And this is a reader, so this reads from memory. So basically, this just goes through the whole memory and reads it line by line. And the value or the result of, or the value of each memory slot will be the output of this reader. So now we can combine this with a different thing, which is called the instruction decoder. If an instruction goes into the instruction decoder, it splits it into those 4 values. We get in the operation code, we get the source, we get the target, and we get the destination. As you can see here, tooltips here are very elaborate as well, so this is really cool. Destination, where the result of the instruction should go, exact meaning varies by instruction type, and then it shows you which value it is right now, the number 3. And as you can see here now, here it shows that the current instruction is set register 29.3, and it also tells you what to do. Like, this is the tooltips in this game are extremely helpful. It's really, really awesome, and it's required, I have to say, especially in the later levels. But you will see about that in a few minutes. So this thing allows us to, interpret and execute those instructions. In this case, this is pretty straightforward. We just have to write this value into the correct register slot, and therefore we have another module, which is the output selector. And basically the output selector has multiple outputs, one input which tells us or tells the module where to output, and one input that tells the module what to output. So we want to write to slot 3, and now it even highlights the things. Like the UI responsiveness in this game is really, really great. The only thing I really hate about UI are the wires. The wires are terrible. They overlap. They are hard to follow. You cannot move them around. You can cut them, but you cannot move them. They will also always find their path automatically, and they're really. It's not great. They're really hard to follow sometimes. It's nice. It highlights the things, as you can see. It highlights the connected parts, so that helps a lot. But the wires itself are terrible. It would be nice to just move them manually sometimes. And I think the pathing it takes is also not great. Like, it should not go in this closely to the input. It should like go out a little further and then down here and then around the corner. That would be more useful, because especially if you do crazy things like, for example, you can do this, which is another nice UI trick. You can connect them like this, and now you have wires everywhere. And this looks okay, but this is fucking terrible. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? And yeah, this is pretty crazy as well. So this is not helpful, as you can see. So the wires are not great. But besides that, the UI is extremely helpful, I have to say. So back to the level though. We have to write into slot 3, and we have to write the value 29 or whatever is in source. So now we have the counter that goes through the memory value or line by line, and then we have the instruction decoder which decodes the instruction, and we connected the outputs of the instruction encoder with the register, so we write the correct values to the correct slots. So now we can step through this, and you can see that it writes the. That didn't work. Oh, no. Well, wait. I'm confused. Something is not how it is supposed to be. Oh, yeah, I forgot to register. Where's the register? Where did the register go? Did I delete that? That's not the register. That's the output selector. Did I accidentally delete the register? I guess I did. Well, let's put it here again. And use a trick from earlier. I showed you earlier. You can do this. There we go. Or you could just stick it there if you prefer that. But I prefer to see the wires. So let's try that again. So we step through. In the first cycle, the output selector will output a 29 in slot 3, because slot 3 is connected to the out select and 29 is connected to the input, and then it will write the 29 when the clock ticks over to this third slot, and that's exactly what the first instruction told us to do. So let's continue with this, and you can see it writes all the instructions, and that beats the level. There we go. Okay. Those are the core mechanics for the first two, well, worlds or areas or chapters, I should say, I guess. And, well, you will build a CPU at this point in this level. It's getting fairly complicated. It's pretty interesting to do, though. The levels are fairly well designed. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, or a few minutes rather. But, yeah, this is the first chapters. It gets more crazy than that. So you build a whole CPU with this thing already, which is pretty cool and pretty fun to do already, and gets fairly complicated and fairly tricky. And now the game, well, just drops the bomb on you and changes the core mechanics. And it's really crazy from what it goes from here. So let's go to the level Quadruple. So now the game introduces milliticks, or microticks, or whatever they call it, I'm not sure, mticks. And basically, the story is that you produce quicker modules now that just work faster, and now we can, well, now it's more distinct. Like before that, the modules were so slow that it didn't matter. All of them just behaved like one per cycle, or I should say it the other way around, so that the timed modules like the writer and the reader were so slow that the speed of the other modules didn't matter. But now all the modules have a speed at which they process the values. So if we, well, except for the number thing, I guess. If we take an adder, you will now notice that there's a little 3 down here. And that means that if we connect two values to the adder or to inputs, it will not automatically output the value. You see those question marks. What this means is that it takes, that's an example for the tooltip being very, very useful, the lower part. it takes 3 mticks for this module to receive and process the result from number 1. No, the upper part. No, never mind. The lower part is useful as well, but I wanted to go with the upper part, which is the important one. Whenever this module's inputs change, it takes 3 milliticks to stabilize, or microticks, or whatever. Its inputs are unknown values while it stabilizes. So it takes 3 mticks to stabilize. So if we now mouse over this one, it tells us that right now the value is question mark, a chaotic, unusable value will stabilize to the input number 1, or value 1, if this module's inputs stay the same for the next 3 mticks. So if nothing changes for the next 3 mticks, those two values will stabilize to a 1, and that will stabilize the output to a 2. Okay, now we combine this with the reader. In this level we have to quadruple the value in memory. So let's take the reader. The reader the reader actually doesn't have a big timer, but it also has a small timer. So the reader has a stabilizing time of 12 milliticks. Now, this means that if we connect, well, that's not a useful connection, but let's do it anyway. That's not useful for the level, but just to demonstrate how it works. If you connect the output of the adder to the reader, it will now take 3 seconds for the adder to stabilize, and then another, not seconds, microticks, and then another 12 microticks for the reader to stabilize, and to stabilize it for the output to stabilize. Because, yeah, the input has to be stable for 12 ticks before the output will actually be stable as well. So if we step through this now, you can see that we go step by step, and in the first step, nothing changes, and so in the second tick, you can see those progress bars filling up. That's quite useful. And now the adder actually stabilized to 1, 1 for the inputs and 2 for the output. And now the reader can start, like you could see, but let's go back. You can see the reader tries to stabilize the input. The input right now is question mark, so it says it's unstable, but it will stabilize to question mark if the input stays for another 10 mticks on question mark. However, it changes in the next tick, so the progress bar resets, and now it's 12 microticks again for the 2 to stabilize. Okay, so now we can click through that, and that will, well, stabilize to 2, and the output will stabilize to nothing because slot 0 in the memory is actually empty. Okay, so how do we actually solve this? Well, quadrupling a value is nothing else than doubling it. So what we're going to do is we read not from 1, but from 0, and we you could use the multiplier. Oh yeah, that's actually a trick in the level. I'm gonna show you. No, yeah, it's not that important. It's not really a spoiler. So basically, you first think, oh, I have to multiply the value by 4. So we put it into a multiplier, which is a module that you just get introduced here in this level. She actually says, also Carol wanted me to show you this new multiplier module I've been working on. I'm not sure if it'll actually help you here, but give it a shot. Well, spoiler, it will not, because if we try to use it, and that demonstrates how this works actually fairly well. If we try to use it, it will now take 12 plus 8 microticks to stabilize the result. So if we go through the test thing, you can see that it takes first the 8 microticks to stabilize for the memory reader, and then we need another 8 ticks for the multiplier to go through. And this level has a time limit, which is 18 microticks, so it will not work. So you're supposed to solve it differently. Oops, wrong button. And as I spoiled already, you quadruple a value by doubling it twice. And so the adder is way faster than the multiplier. It only needs 3 microticks to stabilize. So we can use 2 adders to actually get the result we want. And this will now take a while, and it will tick through, and then we'll output 4 times 46. As you can see, the reader tries to stabilize. We could speed this up by just manually clicking through, and now the first adder will start to stabilize, and now the second one will stabilize as well, and there we go, level beat. Okay, now let's combine that with the latch. Okay, so the latch was a timed module before, so it has this clock thingy ticking over. And that's now, we can now combine that with other modules. This is a fairly simple example, but I hope it demonstrates the point What am I doing? There we go. So we're just supposed to put a number of the value 1 into the latch. The latch always starts with a stabilized 0, so that's not a problem. We're supposed to get a 1 in there. Well, fairly easy, we just connect them. Down here, this is the clock period. We can configure this in this level. In later levels, it will be automatically set to the required value, but let's not go into detail about that. For right now, we can configure this, so we can put a number here, and that's the number of ticks it takes until the clock will tick over. So we have a clock period here, and if we set it to 1, what will happen is that at the first tick, the latch will stabilize the input, will read the input, the unstable input, to the output. So if we do that, it will write a question mark to the output. We're supposed to not do that in that level. It just says that it's just one of the win conditions in this level that you don't do that, because the game tries to teach you how to use the clock correctly. So what you have to do, since to get a stable value in there, is to increase the clock period. The latch takes 2 microticks to stabilize the input, so we have to put the clock period to 3, and in this way, it will stabilize the 1 before the clock completely ticks over and takes the stable 1 to the output. Okay, so the game just dropped this bomb at you, and I don't know if I explained it well. Probably not. The game doesn't do it very well either. And the funny thing in the game is actually the funny thing is the game actually admits that. Like in one of those levels, I'm not sure which one, the character or one of the characters who's talking to you will actually admit that, okay, you're probably still completely confused about delays and microticks, but that's just fair because I changed how everything works. And you're supposed to just like go to the next levels. The first few levels are very, very simple in this chapter, and try to figure it out by trial and error, and then understand how it works in the process. And holy balls, it took me a while to really get behind it in the more complex levels. Like, you have to really understand how those things interact with each other. And wow, like that was a really challenge for me. I'm not sure if it might be easier for others, but for me, this was really, really crazy. It was very interesting, but it took me like a lot of time to actually understand what is going on, how those microticks interact with the clock period, and how I can use or abuse that to solve those levels. And boy, that was an interesting experience, I can tell you. I really liked it though. It was fun, but I was really surprised on how the game just throws this completely new mechanic at you and destroys everything you learned in the first few chapters, basically. Not completely, but basically. And it's a very bold move. It's really, really bold. And you use that obviously for more complex levels later on. Let's just look at one. I'm not gonna explain it. It's kind of a spoiler if you look at it too carefully, I guess. But just to tell us that you can see what's going on. So in this level, the clock period is calculated automatically. As I explained earlier, you can only configure it for the first few levels in this chapter. Afterwards, it will be calculated automatically because it will just take the smallest number you need to have stable inputs everywhere. So if we take a look at this writer, for example, it tells us then when latch 1 changes, which is this one, when latch 1 changes, it takes 15 milliticks for this module to receive and process the results. The path from latch 1 to this module is shown. Modules of the path are transparent. So it highlights the modules that are connected to this path, which is this adder and this register down here, and this latch, obviously. And basically, it tells us that it needs 15 microticks to have stable inputs, this memory writer. And that's the highest amount we'll find in this level. This one takes 3 microticks because like all the modules with the timer obviously create a value, a stable, not necessarily a stable one. Well, they create value, and kind of hard to explain, but basically every time the clock takes over, from there you have to count the microticks. As I said, if you don't understand the deal, it doesn't matter too much. Just play it. It will become clear, hopefully. And those tooltips are extremely useful for this. As I said earlier, these tooltips help a lot. And as I said, it calculates the period timer automatically by just taking the highest value it finds here. So 15 milliticks to stabilize, so the clock is 16, or the clock period. So it will always have stable values, because as soon as you write something unstable to memory, the level will just break, so that you're not allowed to do that. So that makes sense. And yeah, that's the idea. And as I said, I was extremely surprised by the game dropping this bomb. And I thought about it, why it does that. And I think that's my assumption, but it's a random guess. But I see, or I can imagine that it happened this way, is that this, like as you can see it here with the clock period and the microticks and stuff like that, was how the game was originally designed, how the designer wanted it to be. And then he realized that might be a little hard for people to understand initially. So he decided to put 2 chapters in front of that introduce you to the basics of the electronic engineering concepts in this game, and then drops the bomb and introduces the mechanics of the real game, quote unquote. I'm not sure if it happens that way, but I would not be surprised if that's the story how this happened. And I think it was a good decision, because the alternatives are either, well, dropping the first 2 chapters and throwing you into this crazy, hard to understand, unintuitive mechanic head on. That problem might be solved by a really good tutorial, but I think explaining this concept is really, really hard with not frustrating people, or without frustrating people. So I think that's a hard thing to do. And the alternative is, well, what we have now, having chapters that change the mechanics, or have different mechanics than this, or more simplified mechanics, I should say. And that's a little confusing because, well, you learn a bunch of stuff and then you have to basically relearn everything. But it's not like you have to ignore everything you learned in the first 2 chapters. They actually help you learn this new mechanic and how the new things work. It's just a little weird because the parts actually work different now. But I think it's a good solution, because, as I said, the alternatives would either have only, like, drop the first 2 chapters and just have this, or keep the mechanics simple as in the first 2 chapters and have a different game. I guess you could create another game that just relies on the mechanics of the first 2 chapters, and that would be a good game, or could be a good game anyway. But that's why I think that's how the story went. I think the designer wanted the game to be this crazy thing here, and try to figure out a way to introduce people to this concept without totally overwhelming them. And I think he succeeded. Like, this game is definitely not easy, so there will be a lot of people who will be put off by this. This is not an easy puzzle game that just, like, it tries to smooth you in, but the mechanics are so crazy and abstract for the most part that it will be a tough time for a lot of people. I really enjoyed it. It's really my cup of tea, but I think it will definitely be not everyone's cup of tea, like, at all. Like, if you're really into this kind of stuff and crazy electronic engineering mechanics, then this is for you, definitely. But holy balls, it has a learning curve, and it really tries to smooth you in, but it's just hard, I guess, to do it properly. So yeah, let's talk about the levels a little bit, shall we? So, as I said, it starts out fairly simple. One important thing, or one interesting thing about this, if you compare this to Tektronix games, there are some parallels, definitely. Like, you have an open space where you can put down things. I should probably not spoil more levels for you. Let's go back to the counter level. So you have an open, well, blueprint or whatever, where you can put things down and connect them as you want, or as you wish, and use whatever modules you want. Well, not whatever, but multiple different ones. And basically, it's an open-ended puzzle, I guess, is a term to describe this, kind of. But at the same time, as it has parallels to Tektronix games like Manufactoria, it's also more restrictive. And that's because of the conditions of the levels. So the levels will usually only give you a few models, and modules, not models, sorry. Only a few modules, and the others will not be available. If you compare that, you saw that we have 3 there, and if we go to one of those levels, we have way more here. That's actually not a good example. Don't want to show you the later levels though. Well, let's just say there are more modules than the ones you saw. And it's not like introduce a new module and then it will be available forever. It will just, if, like, for every level, the modules available are handpicked, and the game is not scared of taking them away from you for a later level again. And this creates 2 things. Like, the downside of this is that the solutions to this will be a little less varied than in your regular Tektronix game, which can be a downside or can be off-putting to people. But at the same time, it also allows the designer to create more, well, how should I say, more constrained puzzles, but constrained in a positive way, like more deliberate puzzles. They can lead you to specific solutions. So the designer thinks more like the Tektronix games are not like you require a different skill to create interesting Tektronix puzzles than to create more not casual, more God damn it, what's the word? More classic puzzles, I guess. Like this, more regular puzzles maybe is the word I want to use here. So in a regular puzzle game, the designer usually has a goal in mind or a trick you learn in the level and the way you achieve the solution of the level. Sometimes there are multiple paths, but there's usually a hurdle to overcome the designer thinks of before. In Tektronix games, that's not usually the case because the levels are so open and wide and you can do whatever. And so that's definitely a difference here. So the levels and the puzzles can be more deliberate, I guess, is the way to put it. And that creates a lot of very interesting, very challenging puzzles, and I quite enjoyed that. I usually, if I play Tektronix games, at some points the levels become so complex that I'm just not interested in them anymore. I prefer optimizing the first few levels, and that is because that's a more constrained task. That's a more deliberate thing to do. You have like a fairly small solution, and you set your own goal to optimize that for a certain optimization category, and yeah, you can do that, and you have a clear goal. Where with the more open things, it's more for you need more imagination and stuff like that, and just throwing things out. And that's not bad or wrong. That's just two different ways to go. And I prefer actually the more constrained way. That's why I love the first few levels in Tektronix games and usually give up on the later ones. And in this game, basically all your levels are more constrained because the game is not afraid of restricting you to certain modules only. And as I said, the downside to that is the solutions of multiple people will be less varied. There are definitely multiple solutions to most of the levels, but it's in a lot of levels it's pretty clear, and usually it's just not that open as Tektronix games. And they have histograms as well. In the later levels there will be histograms for the time as well. So you have it begins with only module score, how many modules did you use, and then it adds how much time did it take to execute your thing. But histograms are not as interesting as they are in Tektronix games because the solutions are not as varied. So yeah, it also, and that's an interesting fact, is it also allows the designer to actually tell you what the optimal solution is. So you see that it says goal here, and it always gives you a goal for a level, and the goal is not just a goal, it's the optimal solution. That's always the best, at least I think it's always the best optimal solution. I never found one that was better than the goal. I don't think that's possible. So that's another interesting aspect. Because levels are not as open as Tektronix games, the designer felt confident enough to say, yeah, this is definitely the optimal way of solving this level. And well, give you a lower bound. And I really like that, because what I hate about Tektronix histograms is that they don't tell you what is the best solution out there, what is the best score you can achieve in this level, because usually if enough people played the level, someone found the best score. And so that usually, like, if it would tell you what the best scores are, that would usually give you like a lower bound. And I like optimizing for the best solution, so I can do that in this game because it tells you, well, if you get to 4 modules in this one, well, you found the best solution for the level. Congratulations. And it does the same thing for the time later. So I really like that. I'm wondering how the developer pulled that off. Did he just eyeball it? Did he just say, yeah, I think this is the best solution, and wrote it down? Like, is he just very confident about that and eyeballed it? Or does he have like maybe a mathematical way of calculating what the best solution is? Or did he just run a big simulation and let the computer like try to brute force solutions and find the best one? I would be interested in how he actually achieved that. My guess would be he just eyeballed it, but maybe he found a more clever way. I don't know. So that's definitely a plus for me. And yeah, it gives you a lot of levels that are more constrained and more like trying to steer you in a certain direction and show you an interesting trick and stuff like that. And that's what I like about puzzle games. If every level teaches you a new trick, then in my opinion, a puzzle game is, or that's a big part of good puzzle design in my opinion. And that's really cool in this game. I enjoyed this quite a bit. As you can see, the puzzles are like ordered, but they have like multiple paths at points. Some of those paths will not be continued, some will be. So this level is completely optional because you don't need it to get to the end of the chapter. This one is completely isolated. Like this is not like this is completely separate from the rest. You can just play this whenever. This is just a bonus level basically. And you have multiple paths in some level. Like in this one, you can either go this way to get here, or you can go this way to get here, and then you can either go this way or this way to get down here. The thing is, it's not really an or, it's an and, because this level will not unlock until this one and this one will unlock. And that's actually not so great, because that means you can get stuck fairly easily. Usually it puts the harder levels on not necessary paths, but there are a lot of levels on the necessary paths, and sometimes your brain just can't wrap around those puzzles, and that will make you stuck, and that's unfortunate in my opinion, especially because there's one thing in the game design, in level designs in the later ones, that I really dislike. You saw it in this one. In this one it's okay because it actually serves a purpose, but in later ones it's really unnecessary in my opinion. There are time limits, and those are completely arbitrary. There's just a limit of time you are not allowed to you're not allowed to run the simulation for longer than this limit. If you overstep this boundary, the level will not be completed. And this time limit is usually fairly restrictive. In this level, it's okay because it actually wants to, not in this one, never mind, in the quadruple level, it's actually useful because it serves the purpose of showing you that the multiplayer is not the way to go, and the adders is the way to go. But it still could be solved differently, and that's why I hate this mechanic. By just showing you that there is a more optimal solution, which it does already because it tells you the minimum number of time that is required to solve this level if you find the optimal solution, you incentivize the players to, well, try to optimize the solution and find a better one. So that's what Sectronic games do, and I'm not sure why the designer of this game decided against that. It could just allow you to create a horrible slow solution and tell you there is a better way of doing it. You can try to achieve that or find that way, or you can just move on. And that would just be the better choice in my opinion. I don't see an upside of actually giving you those time constraints. Sure, it forces you to find those better solutions, but why force if you can just incentivize? Incentivizing works really well in Sectronic games. It works really, 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 really well. Like, you come up with a horrible first solution that just works, and you're happy, awesome, it just worked, and then you look at the histograms and you're, oh, okay, apparently I can optimize this quite a bit, and then you go back and find awesome solutions that are more optimal than the original one, and that just works. In this game, it's similar, but you cannot move on. Like, you first find a solution that just works, and you're yes, and then the game tells you, well, this solution is not valid, try again, and you're forced to go back and optimize the solution. And it's also a little worse because you actually cannot 100% confirm that your solution is correct if it is too slow, because the simulation will stop running at the time limit. So it will, like, especially for the more complex levels, you get a setup for a solution which you think should work, but it's horribly slow, you cannot confirm that your logic is correct. Like, because usually how I solved those levels was throwing down a solution that just works and then optimizing them and find better ways of making things or achieving things quicker. And it was kind of a pain in the arse because I couldn't confirm that my original concept just worked. So I had to just make sure with trying to doing it manually in my head, so simulating in my head how it should play out, if that I did it correctly. And sometimes I didn't, like I missed something, and then I optimized it and found out, oh, it's still wrong, and I could scrap everything. And that's quite annoying. So I don't think this time limit is a good idea. I don't see the benefit whatsoever in that. Like, it's similar to the restriction of the modules, like it restricts the game, but without the upsides. Like restricting the modules, sure, it allows you to get less valid solutions, and that's basically the same what happens with the time, but the upside of that is that you can have more deliberate levels that, well, give you certain tricks. Like some levels would just be trivial and optimal to solve if you would allow all the modules, and with restricting them you can make people use other modules, and you could not just use the incentivized trick, because that works with the time. You can say, okay, this is a horrible solution, but it works. Here, it's possible to get a bigger, an easier one. If you just give you all the modules, then there are some levels where you find a trivial solution, and it's also the most optimal solution, but it's not the interesting solution, and therefore I think that's a big difference here between the time constraint and the module constraints. And yeah, I don't like the time constraint, but it doesn't kill the game at all. Like, there are more things I'm not super fond of in this game. As I said, the wires are not great. The story is a little weird. I don't know, it's, as I said, about this startup company, and there's this one guy who's just an asshole. And interestingly enough, your boss is hiring multiple women. Like, I think all the employees, you're playing a woman, and there are 2 more women. Not all of them are women. This guy is obviously not a woman. But all the technicians are women, I think. Are women, sorry, not women. Are women, which is interesting. It's also surprising. I don't think it's a problem. It just, it sometimes feels like the game is trying to tell me, giving me a message very subtly, and I don't know. It's just a little weird. Cannot really put my finger on it. It's not a terrible story. It works just fine. It's not super interesting though. It's okay. The dialogues are fairly short and are pleasant to read for the most part, so it's not a big deal. But the story was a little strange to me. So yeah. Besides the first 3 chapters, there's also this bonus thingy, which is available from the start, where you, well, have just bonus levels, which apparently are partially fairly hard. I didn't try those yet. I solved all the 3 chapters, so I solved the main storyline. I optimized most of the levels as well. You can see it on the little star icon here that tells you that I got the optimal solutions. Didn't do it for all levels, obviously. Didn't do it for the last one, which is this one, which is really crazy. Well, it's not that hard to actually build because it's similar to this one, but it's really crazy to optimize this, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. Didn't optimize everything, but solved the main campaign. So then, as I said, bonus levels, and then there is an extra campaign. There's just another employee, Sam, who replaces Dana, which is the character you played in the first 3 chapters. And I didn't try that yet, but I looked at the first level and it seems like it's just more stuff after the first 3 chapters. So that's more levels. That's actually a lot of levels, I think. Like, that's, I don't know, 15 levels per chapter at least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 for the chapter 2. It's similar numbers for the other chapters, a little fewer here, I guess. So this is definitely like over 60 puzzles, I guess, maybe even more. So that's really, really good. I don't think there's a level editor. Let me not lie. No, there's no level editor, which is a little unfortunate. That would be interesting as well. But yeah, there's a lot of content here. The main menu, there's multiple profiles, which I like. That's just a good thing to include in a game. Like, if you have multiple people sharing the game on the same computer in a family or something, then this is good to have. The options menu is a little limited, but I guess it doesn't need much stuff. There's full screen and window, resolution options. Full screen is actually full screen, not borderless window, so there's no borderless window option here. And 2 separate sound sliders. No rebindable hotkeys, which is a little unfortunate. There are not too many hotkeys, but they're quite useful. Like, there's an undo and stuff like that. And in general, as I said earlier, the UI and the controls work very, very well. There are a lot of not a lot of little quality of life features like undo and saving certain parts from earlier levels and things like that. That just works really, really well for the most part. And well, yeah, that's it. Here you can look at the story again and get some insight. Like, if you beat the game, you unlock this, and this gives you some backstory about the development of the game, which is kind of interesting. So yeah. That's it. That's Silicon Zeros. It's really, really great in my opinion. It's an amazing game. Not without its flaws, but the upsides clearly overshadow the downsides in my opinion. And I had a lot of fun playing this. And I probably will play a few more levels if I find the time. Definitely fun, really interesting experience. And as I said, I think it's a very, very bold decision to just change the core mechanics of the game after chapter 2 and throw something completely different. Not completely different, but, well, yeah, change the core mechanics. That's just crazy, but it worked, and that's pretty cool. And it was definitely an interesting ride for me, and yeah, I really enjoyed the game. And I also enjoyed Manufactoria. If you didn't play that, I have a link in the description. Play that. That's really great as well. It's a totally different game than this, but it's also awesome. So Manufactoria is basically a little bit similar to Infinite Factory, but in 2D, I guess. It's not the same thing, but it has a similar vein, so definitely check that one out as well. It's really, really amazing. So yeah, as I said, it's called Silicon Zeros. It's available. I will put the link in the description below, at least on Steam. I'm not sure if there are other places. I'm gonna look that up. So yeah, link in the description below if you're interested in it. I'm Pion. Thanks a lot for watching. Have fun and see you next time.